Welcome to Bicyclist Safety and Law Enforcement, presented by the Coalition of Arizona Bicyclists, narrated by Bicycle Officer Brian Ong. Why receive training in bicycle issues? Bicycling is an important mode of travel due to its affordability, efficiency, and health benefits. As bicycle travel has grown in popularity, the public has asked law enforcement to become more involved in bicycling issues. This presents challenges for police because misconceptions about safe bicycling practices and state law are widespread among the public. This e-learning was designed to provide the most accurate and relevant information available to Glendale police officers so they can be confident when discussing bicycle issues with the public and can effectively prioritize related enforcement and outreach activities to promote public safety. By examining the relationship between traffic laws, crash statistics, and bicycle practices, this course will increase knowledge of the rights and duties of drivers of bicycles and vehicles, spread awareness of causes of common bicycle crash types, provide insight into how users' behavior affects crash risk, and provide understanding of how law enforcement can effectively promote safe bicycle travel. Arizona Revised Statute 28-812 assigns bicyclists the same rights and responsibilities as operators of motor vehicles. Bicycle travel is permitted on all roadways in Arizona except urban freeways and where posted. Arizona Revised Statute 28-101.6 definition of a bicycle means a device including a race wheelchair that is propelled by human power and on which a person may ride and that has either two tandem wheels, either which is more than 16 inches in diameter, or three wheels in contact with the ground, any which is more than 16 inches in diameter. Whereas a vehicle means a device in or by which a person or property is or may be transported or drawn on a public highway, excluding devices moved by human power or used exclusively on stationary, rails, or tracks. Most traffic rules apply to both bicycle and vehicles. However, a few special restrictions apply only to motor vehicles due to the greater potential danger they pose to other road users. State law is very consistent about this distinction. Bicyclists are not pedestrians. Although state law does not prohibit use of bicycles on sidewalks, sidewalk bicycling is not recommended. The crash rate for sidewalk cycling is several times higher per mile than cycling on the roadway. Although state law requires other drivers to yield to bicyclists on sidewalks as they would to pedestrians, sidewalk cyclists often surprise motorists at intersections and are less able than pedestrians to stop quickly when conflict arises at street corners and crosswalks. The vast majority of car-bike collisions involve intersections and crossing movements. Only a small percentage of car-bike collisions involve faster motor vehicles overtaking slower bicycles. Crashes are more likely to happen on sidewalks than on roadways. Because bicycles have the maneuverability characteristics of wheeled vehicles, it is usually safer for bicyclists to operate on vehicle facilities according to the rules for drivers than to attempt to follow pedestrian rules on pedestrian facilities. In order to significantly reduce injuries and deaths to cyclists, cycling safety strategies must address intersection crashes and their causes. In 2014, there were 49 car-bike crashes recorded in Glendale. That makes up 1.5% of all crashes. 86% were injury accidents. 59% were at a four-way intersection. 78% were in daylight lighting conditions. 90% were in clear and dry weather conditions. 65% were under minimum damage. Major intersections were at 59th and Thunderbird, 59th and Cactus, 59th and Bethany Home Road, and 75th Avenue in Glendale. In the past 5 years, there have been 2 fatalities and a total of 475 car-bike crashes. Effective traffic negotiation between drivers can be explained as 4 basic rules. Let's examine each of these rules, the status that realize them, and the direct relationship to bicycle safety. Basic rules of the road. 1. Maintain a safe buffer space. 2. Yield before entering a more important roadway. 3. Destination positioning. 4. Speed positioning between intersections. Rule number 1. Maintain a safe buffer space. Each operator on the roadway is entitled to the space they are using and a safe buffer around them. Faster drivers must yield to slower and stop traffic ahead in order to respect their rights to the roadway. This means that drivers must pay attention and limit their speed so that their stopping distance is less than their sight distance. Arizona law clearly states that drivers have the duty to slow for traffic ahead of them, and that driving so fast to be unable to slow in time constitutes a violation of Arizona Revised Statute 28701A. However, it is also unlawful to suddenly enter the path of another lawfully operating driver so close that the driver cannot slow down in time to avoid a collision. In order for drivers to yield to one another, they must be visible. A quarter of all car-bike collisions involve low light conditions. Arizona law requires bicyclists to use a white headlight in front as well as red reflectors on a bicycle when cycling at night. Bicyclists may use red rear taillights in addition to the required reflectors. Outreach programs that include lighting set giveaways can be an effective way to increase awareness of the needs for good visibility equipment. Rule number 2, yielding before entering a more important roadway. The most common car-bicycle crash is the motorist drive-out type. Here, the bicyclist has priority, but the motorist fails to yield at a stop sign, red light, or driveway. Most of these bicyclists are adults. In most cases, the bicyclist is riding on the sidewalk prior to the collision. In many cities, the most common bicycle crash involves a bicyclist riding contraflow on the sidewalk before being struck by a driver pulling out from a stop sign, red light, or driveway. The next most common type of car-bike crash is the bicyclist ride-out type, where the motorist has priority but the bicyclist fails to yield at a stop sign, red light, or driveway. Many of the bicyclists in these crashes are children under 16 who have limited skill and experience at traffic negotiation. Defensive bicyclists often operate in a more visible location away from the curb where they can clearly see and be seen by motorists entering the intersection. The cyclist operating further left is seen from further away. Rule number 3, destination positioning. ARS 28751 requires position and method of turning. Right turns, both the approach for the right turn and the right turn, shall be made as close as practicable to the right-hand curb or edge of the roadway. Rule number 3, destination positioning. A right hook collision can occur when motorists attempt to turn right from a position to the left of the bicyclist. In some cases, the motorist attempts to pass the bicyclist on the left immediately before turning. In others, the bicyclist attempts to pass the motorist on the right. State law compels all drivers to avoid right hook collisions by merging as far right as practicable before turning. Bicyclists may use full lane. ARS 28-815A states, bicyclists traveling slower than normal speed of traffic must ride as far right as practicable, but only on unlaned roads or in lanes that are wide enough to share safely side by side with vehicular traffic. There are additional exceptions for debris, surface condition, other objects, and when preparing to turn left. It is at the bicyclist's discretion where to ride within a marked travel lane that is too narrow to share. If a bicyclist elects to ride on the right side of the lane, another driver may legally pass within the bicyclist lane only if it can be done safely. Overtaking crashes often occur in darkness or at dusk and dawn. Many include bicyclists not using lights. Most daylight overtaking crashes involve motorists attempting to pass within the bicyclist lane and passing too close, sideswiping the cyclist. Most occur in lanes that are narrow considering the width of the passing vehicle. Most overtaking crashes involve roadways with maximum speed limits of 40 miles per hour or higher. Other common crashes or overtaking crashes include drunk driving and loss of vehicular control. Motorists often misjudge the space required to pass safely when a bicyclist is riding at the right edge of a narrow lane. This can result in unsafe, close passes and sideswipes. Many experienced cyclists will ride in the center of the lane when the lane is narrow or hazards on the right edge narrow its usable width. This makes it clear to approaching the motorist that there isn't enough room to pass in the same lane, causing them to slow down sooner and change lanes sooner. This improves safety and comfort for the cyclist and reduces sudden maneuvers by motorists. Per ARS 28-735, 3 foot is the minimum safe passing distance when passing a bicyclist. More is required at higher speeds and by larger vehicles. This requires at least 14 feet of pavement for an SUV driver to safely pass a cyclist riding a safe distance from the pavement edge. More space is required for a bus or truck, but most travel lanes are only 11 to 12 feet wide. This means drivers must usually move into the next lane to pass safely. In addition to the safe passing distance, Arizona Revised Statute 28-735 denotes civil penalties for the injury or death of a bicyclist in an overtaking collision. For serious injury, the civil penalty can be up to $500. For death, the civil penalty can be up to $1,000. These penalties do not apply to bicyclists who is injured in a vehicular traffic lane when the designated bicycle lane or path is present and passable. Overtaking on the right. Arizona Revised Statute 28-724A states, the driver of a vehicle may overtake and pass on the right, on a street or highway with unobstructed pavement that is not occupied by parked vehicles and that is of sufficient width for 2 or more lines of moving vehicles in each direction. B. The driver of a vehicle may overtake and pass another vehicle on the right only under conditions permitting the movement in safety. While passing on the right is legal in Arizona, it can be problematical. Educate bicyclists to never pass on the right side of trucks and buses at an intersection. A particularly dangerous right hook conflict occurs with large trucks and buses which swing wide at intersections. A bicyclist in a driver's blind spot on the right can easily be knocked down and run over by the rear wheels. Bicyclists can protect themselves from such conflicts by never passing on the right side of trucks and buses at intersections. Large vehicle operators can reduce these risks by singling right turns early and by not overtaking bicyclists before turning. Rule number 4. Speed positioning between intersections. Faster traffic passes on the left. Slower traffic uses the rightmost lane for their destination. If no lanes are marked, slower drivers operate as far right as is safe and practicable. Drivers may pass only when it is clearly safe to do so. Per ARS 28-721B, on all roadways, a person driving a vehicle proceeding at less than the normal speed of traffic at the time and place and under the conditions then existing shall drive the vehicle in the right-hand lane then available for traffic or as close as practicable to the right-hand curb of the edge of the roadway, except when overtaking and passing another vehicle proceeding in the same direction or when preparing for a left turn at an intersection or into a private road or driveway. With the exception of protesters intentionally blocking traffic, as in critical mass events, bicyclists cannot be cited for impeding traffic. The impeding traffic law is a speed law. It is clearly written to only apply to motor vehicles that are capable of going faster. It exempts non-motorized vehicles entirely. It makes an explicit exception for motor vehicles that are slow by design. Bicyclists often ride side by side to communicate with one another, to increase visibility, improving their safety, to discourage unsafe passing in narrow lanes, and to make the group more compact when passing through signals and stop signs. The state vehicle code does not prohibit bicycling abreast in a single lane. Signed bike routes identify pleasant routes for cycling. Bike route designation does not affect the legitimacy of cycling on one road or another, nor does it affect the rules of the road. Striped bike lanes look and perform much like paved shoulders and are both legally optional for cyclists to use. Bike lanes often have similar safety hazards as paved shoulders, such as dooring hazards. Cyclists often find paved shoulders littered with debris and to have poor surface conditions. Now that the relationship between bicycle safety and the rules of the road have been presented, what roles should law enforcement play? To effectively promote bicycle safety, It's helpful to develop a positive relationship with the cycling community by focusing on helping cyclists reach their destination safely and efficiently. Enforcement actions should focus on encouraging correct direction cycling on roadways with lights at night. Law enforcement can educate bicyclists and motorists about safe and lawful cycling practices. When possible, use verbal warnings for most infractions by bicyclists, while saving citations for egregious or repeated violations. Violations by motorists that pose the greatest danger to cyclists include the following: failure to yield at crosswalks or sidewalks, passing a bicyclist when unsafe or passing too closely, failure to yield when turning left, and DUI. When you are interacting with motorists, know that some will object to bicyclists using the roadways or having to slow or yield them. Some motorists view bicyclists as scofflaws and object to the unbalanced enforcement. Do not engage in debates. Stick to the written law. Ensure motorists that you are paying equal attention to cyclists' violations that pose collision hazards. When considering enforcement actions to promote public safety, the following bicycle violations should receive priority: cycling against traffic, cycling at night without headlight or reflector, failure to obey functional traffic signals, failure to yield at junctions as required or when entering the roadway. When interacting with bicyclists, remember that some cyclists will not believe that traffic laws serve their best interests. Do not engage in debates. Stick to the written law. Assure cyclists that you are paying equal attention to motorist violations that endanger them. Do not let your guard down. Use the same cautions while conducting bicycle stops that you would with other law enforcement action. When writing up a bike-car collision, remember to document both sides of the story by interviewing the bicyclist and the driver of the motor vehicle. Additionally, photograph the entire scene if there is a serious injury, as in checkbox number 4, and be sure to include shots of all debris, especially bicycle parts and impact areas. Interview all witnesses and collect contact information including passengers in motor vehicles, other motorists, pedestrians. Identify any cameras in the area and secure video footage including Go cameras, traffic cameras, business security cameras. Utilize information reported by 911 callers. Conclusion: the rules of the road allow drivers of all vehicle types to get to their destination safely. Law enforcement plays an important role in promoting bicycle safety by reminding the public how the traffic laws support safe cycling. Much of the motoring and bicycling public does not understand how traffic laws treat bicycling or what best bicycling practices are. This presentation has provided essential background information to assist officers in their interaction with the public on bicycling issues with identification on appropriate and effective enforcement actions. This e-learning was modified by the City of Glendale by the Coalition of Arizona Bicyclists from a presentation originally developed by the members of the North Carolina Active Transportation Alliance and the Raleigh Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission in cooperation with the North Carolina State University Police Department. Thank you.